So welcome to our Friday edition of Military Trailblazer Office Hours. This is our Friday open Q&A session where our goal is to be a live forum for military veterans, spouses, transitioning military, allies, which basically means we're here for everybody. So that if you have an issue while you're going through Trailhead, you have an issue or a challenge at work, basically anything Salesforce technology related, if you have an issue that you would like some help on, that's what we're here for. The only thing that we ask that we don't go into is Salesforce super badges, as that's a violation of the Salesforce policy. But pretty much anything else is fair game. Um, After the call, if you want to stay connected, a couple ways that you can do that. The first is by signing up on mtofficehours.com. That'll make sure that you get the reminders for all of the Military Trailblazer office hour sessions. You can join us on LinkedIn, both on our page and our group. And we also have a private Slack workspace that you can join here as well. So let me stop my share. So
Did that
basically,
Slack link get updated?
um,
No,
did the link expire?
we had somebody a couple of weeks ago that tried to use that QR code, and it's an old expired invitation. So
Well, then I'll go fix that. And what I'll do, since I've shared bad information here, I'll actually put the current link in the chat here. And the thing is, the link shouldn't expire, so I don't know why. Yeah, it even says that when I
you have
just
to go in and tell it when you create the link. You can tell it to not expire, but
yeah,
all the bad.
that's what we got here. But there you go. So it's in the chat of the meeting here in case anybody wants to join that Slack workspace. Okay, so let's jump in. If anybody has any questions or topics that they would like to go through, just use the raise hand icon and we'll go through them in order. So any questions? Julia, see your hand up. What do you got?
Okay, I'm trying to build a report using login history, particularly the field login date. When I go in, of course, because I'm assistant admin, I can see data, but other users with different licenses, such as the platform license, are not. I found this monitor login history permission set, but now it's giving me an error. I'm actually on the call with the tech support, and they're saying it's not available to that license. So I'm trying to figure out what workaround there is to be able to see the data.
Okay. So I definitely have some thoughts, but before I give you my take on this, anybody have any thoughts or workarounds? Essentially, if I say it back to you, you have the login history table, which essentially every time a user logs into Salesforce, it puts an entry in there to say, here's the user, here's like their IP address, their browser they're using, and the date time that they actually logged in. So that traditionally admin audit table that's available, you want to give access to that to users. It just so happens that those users are using a license type that might not have access to that table. That's kind of what the issue is.
Yeah, the report actually, I don't know what table it's built up, but right now I'm using the user's standard object, and I can get the login date from that in the
Yeah,
report. And so when I put that login date in and I filter by it because we want to see in a particular month, how many logins we have, how many unique logins we have, what's the percentage on average they log in by role, they can't see any of that data. It's
yeah.
blocked.
All right, so let me do one thing here. So let me just share my screen just so that
I was saying,
folks.
can you not just export and give them the report?
That's an option too.
I mean, I know it's not like the best option, but if it does become a licensing issue where you can't work around with the permission set, you could always just have it like delivered weekly based
Um,
on you running it, right? I'm pulling it up right now.
so I think that's Megan. I would probably put that one into what do we used to say? Like that's a way. I think
Anyway,
the
yeah.
worst case, right? The challenge with that, I think that I would say the downsides is that obviously somebody has to export it. The data is not real time where they can see it, track it.
Mhm.
It's something they have to deal with. But let's just see. What is the name of the report that you're looking at? Is it the user report?
User. Yes, that's
Okay,
one.
so let's go under users, start report, and
And I
there
have
should be.
it filtered, I have it grouped by login date
I
and
mean,
I
she
think
could even
full
do it.
name.
Sorry.
Yeah, here we go. So you can see here when we look at all the fields that are available in this report type, We have the standard user information, whatever Salesforce.com information, user preferences, and then we have this section here for login history, and we got that login date time.
Mhm.
So if we just add this onto our report, let's just see what it looks like, and then I'll give you my idea here. All right, so we can see here that we have the last login, and you can see all the date times that I've logged into this Trailhead Playground.
And then I go
So
in and edit it and I filter it by like last month and I also group it by, I think, calendar month or something. When
yeah,
I do all of that, it just, they can't see anything. I
yeah,
don't even think they can see anything as soon as I add in this login date field.
yeah. So here's what I would if anybody else has any thoughts on this, let me know. But here's a workaround that I can see. So you have users that are platform users. That being said, you know that they're going to have access to custom objects, right? So in a worst case scenario, I can imagine something where you had some kind of scheduled job that daily, once a couple times a day, whatever it is, would query that table and then insert those records into a custom object, and then you run the report on that object, and they can see that. It wouldn't be real time. There would be some lag based on how often the job runs, but you put the data into a custom table, they could report on it then.
Mhm.
I have
Um,
another. Couldn't she just create a dashboard, run it as herself, and then let everybody see it?
That works too. I read that that works. They just couldn't get to the underlying report. If they clicked on the report, they wouldn't get anything. But yeah, I
Right.
think
yeah,
it works. Mhm.
and tell me if I'm wrong, Megan, but I think the other issue might be you would be able to do that if it was for like a dashboard that would show everybody's data. But if you wanted it to be like a user specific one where they can see their information, kind of like the dashboard tower to them, um, that wouldn't work then, right? Because you can't show a dashboard as the user running as another user. Is that?
I don't think so. I'm looking at it right now. I don't think you can. I'm just like I'm in dashboards right now for something else. I think you're right. I don't think they could see it. Well,
They wouldn't, sorry, they
yeah,
wouldn't see it because they don't have access to that data, right?
right.
If they see it as the admin, they can see everything, but you would have to create a dashboard that filters down on each user to see it as the admin and then share that only with that user. Otherwise, you really have to give them access to the people's object, the user object, that they can see that.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Let me just see. I hate giving advice on things and then really honestly not knowing if it would actually work. So let's just as a quick idea here, if I went into a schedule triggered flow, let's just make sure we can actually access that table. Um, so let's just do a quick get records and yeah, I'm not even gonna tell you. Let's just see. I think it's is it user login history? User login maybe?
There's
I was just say,
login
what is
history.
the field called that you were trying to do, Julie?
Login date.
Okay, thanks.
And I think that's actually the data is actually stored in like on a different table. So if we go to objects, let's just do star login, and I think it's this table. Maybe not.
Is there a reason I can't even pull login date as a field to search in the global on setup?
Yeah, because it's not a user field. It's actually when you run that report, the report's actually joining a couple different tables. It's the user table, and then there's like another table, which I think it's this one, the user login. I think every time a user logs in, maybe this is, but this doesn't look correct. Um, I don't think this is it. Um,
Try login history. Yeah.
yeah, that makes more sense. Yes. Let's go here. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. All right, so let's just go back, look at the fields here. So we got the user ID, the login time, login source type. Yeah, so I think this is the table that we would care about. So let's just see if this table is available through Flow, which
Right there,
yeah,
login
login
history.
history. Look at that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay,
We
so the
want
fact that we can
login
query
too.
it,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the fact that we can query it, I can see a world where you can then loop through these records and then insert them into a custom table. Again, kind of an ugly solution, but it might meet the requirement.
You need to check how many custom objects they're already using, because standard platform you only get 10 custom objects. Then whether this is worth taking up 10% of your custom objects for this one report.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for all the workarounds. It looks like we have got a good view on it. We'll have to see. We might have to just have them download the data. I think we can do it also in analytics.
Julie, how often do they need to see it? Because you can put it out daily.
Yeah, I think that would be enough. I could use the dashboard method, right?
No, I'm saying you could actually share the report as you daily and send it to them. So if you go if you go into reports and you click on it, and then on the right hand side, if you click subscribe, and then you can edit the recipients, everybody who needs to see it, run the report as yourself so that they should see it.
But don't they also then get just everyone's data?
They will. That's why I was wondering if it needs to be like specific to them.
No, they want to see an overview actually of all the users. They want to act like an admin actually, but we just don't give them admin
but then create the dashboard as the admin viewing it, and then it can all see it
at any time instead of once a day.
Yeah, let me share my screen for a second.
Yeah, good.
They still won't be able to pull the report though, Stephen.
If
they won't be able to dig into the report though, right? They just can see it on the dashboard, which is fine.
Exactly. So you can put you could have still put a table here. So this is a dashboard that we adopted for our clients. I think it's based on a Salesforce pre-configured dashboard that you can actually, I think you can find them on the App Exchange as well. But you can put tables in here as well, just to show them who has logged in when and how often and so on. So there's a lot of options here. So if you don't need to have them look at reports directly, the dashboard will do the trick for you, because they can view it as the admin. And as long as you don't give them the permission to change it, because if they change it to themselves, it'll be empty because they don't have access to those records.
Nice. Yeah, so Julie, I think this, as long as you're okay with the dashboard view, and as Stephen mentioned, I always forget about this, but dashboards are not just the little widgets and charts. You can actually put the tables on there as well. So if you need to have like some detailed information that you would only usually be able to get to from a report, some of that information you could display here on the table as well. So
yeah, I'll use that in my in between. But I do see this. They did allow a permission set, and they were not specific to which license. So I feel like they need to back it up. So I'm pushing on the engineer to see if they need to do something on the back end to allow for it. So I think it's just such a new permission set that maybe they didn't unlock it for everyone. So I'm going to push harder and see if that works too. But this is a great workaround. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Awesome. And thank you, Stephen, for sharing. All right. Any other final comments or questions on this one before we move on? All right. Steve, looks like you have a hand up. What do you got?
Yeah, I just want to make sure we've got somebody who's posted in the chat. Y Deering has some questions about taking the Salesforce Administrator exam.
Okay.
Yeah, I got the answer finally. They said, I just seen in the screen that we have to pay by ourselves. I did it last night at the end.
And while you were looking for the certification, like a voucher for the certification?
Certification for the administrator that I've been pushing for like a long time, because I paid, and then I was like, oh, am I gonna get the exams? I cancel it, and then I tried to ask to Trailblazer, and then in LinkedIn, and then one of them said that I have to contact Iris Collins, which I got the answer also, the same thing here. And yeah, I tried to contact her. I guess she's
Wait.
busy, so I
Oh,
didn't
wait,
get.
are you trying to, Iris doesn't have anything to do with the vouchers
Mm-mm.
at all.
Oh, really?
No, so you're gonna have to contact Salesforce support. But if you want to get a voucher to take your admin through Salesforce Military, you have to complete the entire trail. There we go.
I did Academy, Trailhead
No,
Academy.
that's not the same.
Oh, really?
So
This.
Oh,
if you, okay, here, let me show you. This is what I was trying to explain in the chat. I can't think. What am I trying to do? So if you go to the link I gave you, which is that veterans.my.site.com,
yeah.
if you have an account, when you log in, you should
Yeah.
basically see this.
Yeah, I
And-
had that. All my status is like this,
Okay.
like that, exactly like that. Yeah.
Okay. And you selected the to become an administrator?
Yep.
Okay. So then,
So I got the a voucher for Trail Academy, which I did. I went to the Trail
Okay.
Academy 5 days in a row.
so you're
And
basically, as far as like yours looks like mine right now then.
yep.
Okay. So once you complete the actual that class,
Yep.
if Salesforce Military didn't automatically send you a voucher, because you should have gotten it from Salesforce Military, because you'll also get like a discount voucher for completing the class. But you should be able to take, if you can't, then you can create a case here and
Yeah,
contact.
I did 3 times ask. Didn't get the answer. I think it's okay. I'll just pay by myself for the $200.
Because usually Kelly is pretty good. Kelly, and I can't remember who the other person is that does a lot of the case stuff. They're usually really good about making sure that things are taken care of.
Yeah, I thought I asked to one of the Trailblazer over there that they have the question about, and then I bring up, hey, I'm looking also for the AVAXR. Do you have any advice? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Salesforce Military is run by a different group than those who run like the Trailblazer stuff. And a lot of that Trailblazer stuff is also can be community and pretty much anybody. Whereas if you're specifically here on your Trailhead Military site, and if you want, you do have that chatter here as well.
Yeah.
And so you can ask those questions here.
Mm-hmm.
Also where you can get to the cases, your own cases too.
I'm not sure if I have the chatter over there, but I saw the two, the one on the bottom. It's like two people. So when it talks, I just put the response to it.
Yeah. Yeah, they've revamped their site recently so that you actually do see a lot more of this stuff. The other thing you can also, if you're on the
logged in
Salesforce Military,
yesterday. Sorry again.
on the Salesforce Military, if you go to your benefits, it will actually show you your exam vouchers and give you the code here as well.
Hmm.
No, I'm assuming that all those codes that you have there, Sandy, are used.
Mhm.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we're not putting up any information that.
No, yeah.
You get individual ones.
Yeah, mine is not like Sandra, the one like vouchers on things like that, I didn't see any.
Okay. Are you more on
Vet, military, something. Oh, hold on.
is yours more like this then?
Yeah, hold on.
Why, if you want to share it
Yeah,
too, we
mine
can
is
take a
like
look.
that. Yeah, mine is like
Okay.
that.
Okay. This is the regular Trailblazer that anybody and everybody has
Sorry.
access.
Yeah, I have two like that. So I
Okay.
have two. So one like this and one the military one.
Okay.
And then I synchronize it because when I registered the Salesforce before I joined the military Salesforce, and then when I joined the military Salesforce, and I synchronize it together, and whenever I try to do the hands-ons, it goes to my Trailhead, which is the second one that is shown. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. It should. And then they should sync up periodically. But if you want to communicate with people specifically in the Trailhead Military or the Salesforce Military, to get the vouchers and all that kind of stuff. That's where you're going to find
Yeah,
any.
that's what I did. So the trail mix that I had done for the administrator, and that's why exam prep was fully circled. And then I got automatically the voucher for my Trailhead Academy. And then I done with the Trail Academy, and then I asked my coach, like, hey, how can I get the voucher? Oh, I don't know, you do have to go to this one, to their own website. So I went to the military Trailblazer, like in the community, when like the two people asking, and then
Put in a support case.
I joined you guys here also for military.
Yeah. So
put in a support case, because even if like I failed my admin the first time and I didn't take the class like you did, I just got the voucher. But anything to get a renewed voucher or anything, you have to put in a support case anyway. So do that so that you can get eyes on your account, and then maybe they'll realize like they needed to send you one or there was a step missed. But at least then you'll talk to somebody who's directly dealing with it. So just go through that support case. I need a voucher for my exam.
Okay, well, thank you then. Thank you for the advice,
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah, no worry. And just to put a finer point on that too, when it comes to the different groups that are kind of in play here, right? So you have the veterans.salesforce.com site. That's the Trailhead Military. That's where you set your goal. They identify a bunch of Trailhead stuff you have to complete and that you do. Then you get your Trailhead Academy. You get your certification voucher there. Then you have Trailhead, obviously, which anybody can go to, but it's linked to the military, the Salesforce military as well. Then there's Military Trailblazer office hours, which has nothing to do with any of those things, right? So we're just here just to help where we can. But if you have an issue trying to get your certification voucher, the absolute best advice is to go onto the veterans.salesforce.com site, log in, and then log a case. I mean, you could chat in the community, you can do all that stuff, but logging a case is the absolute best way to do it. So that way it gets on people's list. They know it's open. It's not going to get lost in the shuffle if there's a whole bunch of other messages, things like that. So that would definitely be my recommendation. And
thank you so much.
Yeah, and if you have any problems with it, or if you want to walk through it together, let me know. I'm happy to set up a time we can go through it together if you like.
Okay, thank you.
If you can't find where to log case.
I'll try to figure it out again, and I don't want to take you guys' time.
Yeah, no worries. That's what we're here for.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. Any other questions or comments on that before we move on?
I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay. So let's open it back up then. Anybody else have any questions or topics that they would like to go through for today?
Oh, let me raise my hand. Sorry.
Sandy, I see your hand raised. Yes. Yeah.
So remember last week and the week before when I was having that weird issue with the formula where if the value was null, use the number 1. If not, then add 1.
You figure it out?
Yes and no. So I remember how I was going to try to create like the demo thing. So I did that. And then I created like a test record. And it calculates it correctly in the real world. But in the debug, it did not. And I'm like...
So just to say that back to you, so the way you did this, it's what, with a flow?
I'm sorry?
You're doing this with a flow?
Yes.
Okay, so the flow, when it runs under normal triggering circumstances, it's working. But when you use the debug thing through the flow itself, it's not working.
Correct. Remember, it was doing that thing where if the value was null, it was supposed to use 1. And then if it was not null, you add 1. So what was happening was the value was null, and it was coming up with 2 in the debug.
Was Bill here for that, or was he on vacation?
I don't know.
I think he was on vacation.
Okay,
if it was more than 3 days ago, it doesn't matter. I probably forgot the details anyway. But yeah, so that's interesting. So you are okay. What was it that you were checking is null? Was it like a lookup field or something like that?
It was a roll-up summary max field.
Okay. And the function that you were using to check it, were you using the is null or is blank?
I think I tried both when I was testing it.
Okay. Um, and your calculation there was if it is null or if it's blank, it's a one. Otherwise, it's a what?
Add one.
Add one. Add one to
But
what? Whatever the value is.
whatever the value was.
Okay.
Um, so currently the way it's working is get the value of this field, add one. But I've noticed, when you're doing some of your data stuff, that sometimes if something didn't exist in the first place, something comes in to create that record. It's like, well, it looked for it, but didn't find it, so the value is null. And then it was adding one to null, which still came out with null. So now we've got that value being, so that was what I was trying to fix.
My first thought, without seeing this, would be that I'm curious if that part where you're adding one was that somehow after the part where you saw that it's null and you set it to one, and now it's trying to add one to that. Like in other words, like is there a variable that you're setting that somehow is being set to one and then getting one added to it, like in the flow of the flow?
Mm-mm. Let me see real quick.
Did we set a variable on it at all, Sandy?
Did I do what?
Did we set a variable to like match what it was to come
So,
in and to? I
yeah,
can't remember.
in my initial testing before I brought it here, because I couldn't show it because it was client stuff. I tried the is blank, I tried the null. And then what I actually ended up doing was I put an assignment element before it so that I could see what it was actually doing. And it was actually finding null. So that's why I'm like, so how is it suddenly coming up with two at the end?
I know, but could you bring in a variable and set it to the default value and then just build on the variable and then assign it?
I have no idea.
See what I'm saying? Like bring in, so
But,
like,
but the
sorry.
point is, once I actually activated the flow and created a test record, it actually calculated it properly. That was my whole point, was like in the debug.
Well, let me ask you this, Andy. In the this is a record triggered flow,
Yes.
and when you do the debug, you can specify what record it should run with,
Yes.
and this is a on create or like on update.
On create only.
Okay.
So to make it more complicated, you've got the parent record, which is where the roll-up summary is. You've got a record that comes in a batch with the CSV file. And that, when it matches, the one record, it creates this update record. And so and then when that is created, if it's an effective date in the future, it stays pending. If it's an effective date in the past, it just creates the record, or creates the second record. Then there's a third, and this is the term. And that's where what is being counted on the parent record. So there's a lot of stuff going on. But the main thing that I noticed was that the parent record that had the roll-up summary, which was a max field, was adding, that was where I was having that issue, where it was like, if it didn't have any value, it didn't seem to be calculating correctly when I was debugging it to see if my formula was right.
Yeah.
And then when I tried to create it in a dev org, and I just kind of ran it, it seemed to work. But the other weird part is I also really hate this new, it automatically makes everything not visible to everybody, because I'm having a heck of a hard time trying to figure out how to make it visible again.
So this formula, I'm curious, like the logic for this is literally just looking at the roll up summary field, and if it's X, do something, and if it's Y, do something else. I mean, could you, knowing that the flow is acting a little silly, I mean, could you embed some of that logic into just another formula field? that you then reference? In other words, like standard formula field that says if that value is greater than 0, then it's the value plus 1, otherwise it's 1. You
I
know,
mean,
just to get it out of the flow completely.
let me see if I can. So I did kind of create a similar sort of situation in a Dove org. So um, so this was the roll up summary field, which is set to, you know, display the max number. This one, because the term, so this is where I was like not creating that term number. And then this is what I was trying, this is what was triggering all that stuff to happen, but I kind of simplified some of the flow.
Okay. Can you go back to the first record real quick? All right. So the details there, you have number of terms, and that's a roll up summary field that is calculating what? You said it's the max, or is it
the max on this record.
the max what on that record? Term number?
Yep.
Okay. And term
So if
number
there's-
is a number
so-
field?
Yeah. So if there is multiple terms,
What the
it's
longest one?
going to, yeah, so one, and it's supposed to be sequential 1, 2, 3, 4. So it will basically show number 4 on the membership because you're saying that this person's had 4 terms.
Okay. Got it. Got it. Okay. So if
And
you
then-
go,
And the
Yeah.
reason we had to do that is because when we were creating some of the records initially, some people already had multiple terms, so we weren't starting with 1, so you couldn't just do a count. We were trying to create the history.
okay. All right. Now with that as a reference, if we looked at this right now and there was no membership terms, the theory is that the roll up summary field is going to show blank. It's not going to have any value in there.
Right.
So in your flow, I'm assuming you're doing like a get records on that membership team, and you're trying to check that field. Okay, so I see you have here. So get prior term.
Update the status on that one and then create the new one. And that's if it's in the past. If it's a new one, then we just
Okay.
kind of.
And where's the part where you're actually getting that record that has the roll up summary field on it? That's that right there.
Well, no, this one doesn't have, this one gets the term. It updates that, and then this one, when it creates that new term, it just does
Okay, there's the formula. So you're setting it to whatever the formula. Can we see the formula for that term number? Okay. So if that thing is null, set it to 1. Otherwise, it is the whatever the value is from that thing plus 1. Okay.
You could have,
Can we see
Yeah.
the debug?
yeah,
Yeah.
but it's working now. The moral of the story is it does work all the time now.
not in the debug.
We don't, well, I mean, that sucks, but it's working in real life. I don't care what the debug says. Debug also says screen flows work when they don't.
Okay, I don't know how to get, there it is. Well, I know, but when you're testing in the debug and it tells you it doesn't work, you're usually aren't going to then go and activate it and test to make sure that it works or doesn't work. So
I think the only thing I would have done differently, Sandy, is I would have done a decision on if it was null or not, and then I would have set it there and then moved on and just done it on decisions from it. Because then I would have set it myself to 0 to 1, right? Like set the variable.
the only problem is the actual flow that I'm using is like really giant.
Oh,
And I didn't want to add another element to it. First of all, I didn't expect this to happen.
Yeah.
touche.
I was trying to create a simple solution so that we weren't showing up with things that were null that shouldn't be. But the fact, and then it comes down to the fact that you're just like, but why? You know?
Yeah. So Sandy, I wonder if we could do this. If you go back to edit to flow, let me say this out loud, and if you think it's something we could do now, great. If not, you can try it offline. But what I was thinking is in the flow itself, the debug, it looks like when we're checking the step where you're setting the value, you're seeing a 2 there. I would just be curious to see what the formula actually evaluated to, right? So if you created just a variable called throwaway, whatever it is, put in just a number variable that we're going to have as just to be there. And then before that step where we're actually setting the value, just do an assignment of setting that variable you're creating now equal to whatever the formula is, just so that in the debug log, we can actually see what the value is there. Unless there's a better way to see that I'm not aware of, but just having a variable and then creating an assignment block that at least allows us to see like what that's being set to. And then maybe that would give us, I mean, I'm assuming it's going to be 1, but I don't know if it's getting it because it's, well, yeah, I just don't know.
Did anybody else just realize she's working in freeform? I can't do
I
it.
did, yeah.
I can't. You're a beast, Sandy. I can't do it.
Well, it's the only way I can do it because I tend to throw things around and it's a lot easier for me to move.
Yeah.
I don't do auto ever. Okay, so what did you want me to do?
Yeah, so whatever that variable that you just created is, we're going to set that equal to your formula.
And you
Okay,
wanted
and
me
then
to put
just
before?
yeah, just put it right before there. That way when we debug, we can see it. And again, I think where did it go? There it is. Yeah, I think it's just it's helpful just to know, is it seeing that it's like set to a 0 and then it's
I did.
or is
Yeah.
it, you know,
No, I did this too.
okay. Right. So in that assignment, okay, so it does set it to, so the formula is 1. That's what it's coming out to. Now, I guess the other thing now is maybe we just update that assignment test here. If you just go back to that element, instead of setting it to the value of the formula, can you set it equal to the value of that field itself? So keep that there. Keep the formula on the left side, or the variable. I'm sorry, put the variable on the left side. But for the value, instead of setting the formula, set it to be just that field that you were using, you're referencing in your actual formula. So it's like the member
Yeah.
__ R something, whatever it is. Yeah, number of terms. I'm curious just to see what that number of terms is at the time.
Yeah, I did this too.
And the fact that it's the recent record is not displaying there and you have to type it in is kind of infuriating. But,
yeah, I don't know why that's happening either.
and so it's null. And with that record now, if you look at that in Salesforce, that record, that field is null, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I think
Will you throw that formula back in the chat again for me when you get a second, Sandy?
Mm-hmm. But look,
it's killing me.
It works but this is what I'm saying. Like, it actually does work properly. But when I was testing it, it's not. So I wasted all this time.
Well, what if
wait,
what if
you
you
have the
debug now with 2?
Hold, wait. You have a formula field that's doing it, plus you're building it as a formula in the flow?
I don't have a formula field, no.
Oh, you just ran it.
I just ran it just now because it's active.
Oh, okay.
This is where I was saying, I'm like, remember how I had this problem?
Yes.
And then because I needed to actually create some records because it's a dev org and I didn't actually have any, I created one after I activated it, and all of a sudden I'm like, wait a second.
So if you run the debug now with that second record that you just created.
Well, if I do it with the second record, I now have now there's a value in there, so it will work. Like,
so it's
even
only
if I
on
use
that
this one, because now there's a value in there. value. Well, actually, it isn't still working because it shouldn't be null anymore, but it is coming up with 3. So I don't know why the debug is calculating it differently than it's actually calculating.
Give me your formula. Thank you.
I always lose where the chat is when I'm sharing.
Okay.
Mhm. Okay.
Fun, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, this is definitely one of those that I wish I had the environment to kind of play in just to see.
Hey, it's a dev org. I can share it with you.
Yeah, just real quick, if you go back to the record and you create a third one now, it should show up as what, 2? Actually, before you do that, what does the roll-up summary field show right now? Just 1. Okay. So then if you created a new one, it should set that to 2.
But only if it's in the past.
2. And then the roll-up summary field, if you look at that right now, 2. Okay.
And it excludes ones that are in a pending status. Which is what it should do. So like if I it sets
Is
that.
it possible that you've got multiple flows active on that object?
No. Because this is a dev org and I literally just created this for here. And these are completely brand new objects that I created specifically to demonstrate here.
Shouldn't the roll-up now show 3?
No, because it's excluding ones that are pending and this new one that I just created is pending. So, but once I change it to active, now it's 3. And that's basically what the flow is, the original flow is supposed to do. Because we only want to know, because sometimes, it's like, hey, they're going to actually renew, but it's not an actual active term yet. So they're still only in term 2. We don't want to show 3 terms. And then if they change their mind and cancel, we don't want it's ever, when we're doing the reporting stuff on like how long somebody's a member or whatever, it's like you don't want to know that they had a term that never went active.
So, Sandy, I'm wondering, and I have no evidence to justify this, but I'm wondering, could this have something to do with how roll-up summary fields are calculated? In other words, like when somewhere in the save operation, if you create a record, it's going to trigger roll-up summary fields to recalculate. And I almost wonder if it's like in the real world, it's calculating at one point and the debug is doing it another. So in other words, like the record you've inserted, it's taking that value into account as opposed to, what I mean? It's like calculating differently. I think the only way that you could really prove that would be to change your logic up. Instead of using that roll-up summary field, just put it on like a text field. Like a number field on that. So instead of the roll-up summary, you have a number field that you could set yourself. Set it to 1 or set it to blank. Do your debug, see what it comes out to. Set it to 1, do your debug, see what it comes out to. But at least that way, you don't have to worry about that whole extra mechanism of roll-up summaries being recalculated that might be causing it. I don't know. I'm not sure.
I mean, the only thing, obviously, my thought process when I saw that that's what happening, I'm like, obviously, what is essentially happening is it's creating the record, setting that number, and then for some reason, then recalculating the formula again. And I don't know why or how or when, but that's what it seemed to be doing. But yeah, like when I literally created this just to demo here, and then I activated it so I could create a bunch of records to demonstrate it, I'm like, wait a second. That is what it's supposed to do. What's going on now?
I convinced myself that I never needed to memorize this, but the order of execution for Salesforce operations has roll-up summaries happening after flows. So
Right.
the
Are you
roll-up
trying to
summary
decide this
value,
is like a before or after save flow?
It's an
right.
after save.
Hmm. Well, okay. Well, hold on a second. So, well, yeah. So that's going to make a difference if it's the real world or debug.
That's kind of where I'm thinking. I'm like,
Yeah. So maybe as a to close out on this one, since I don't think that we're going to be able to get a solution in the next 5 minutes, I think generally speaking, anytime that we're troubleshooting this type of thing, taking it from the like removing some of the complexity, trying to get down to a more finer point thing that you can test, I think is the way to go. So you've already done that with the giant flow, turning it into just a small, very specific flow. If still can't figure it out, then I think maybe removing as much additional complexity as you can, getting it down. And that's where I might suggest again, taking the roll up summary fields out of the equation, trying it with just a number field and see if you're experiencing the same thing. Um, and if so, then who knows what the issue is. But if not, then maybe we could point to the roll up summary fields being the issue and
right,
somehow save order of operations.
right. And at this point, it's like, how much time do I spend just trying to understand why an aspect that essentially doesn't truly matter in the grand scheme of things?
But
How much time do I spend going down that rabbit hole when I actually know it truly works in real life? And once it's activated, it is working the way I wanted it to.
but if we don't solve it, Sandy, then the terrorists win.
Yes.
So that's
I do want to point out that there are things in debug. I mean, this is a good learning point, right? I learned the very, very, very hard way that when you are debugging screen flows as the other user, it's actually still running as admin. It does not matter. And how did I find out? Because I built screen flows for 3 different personas, tested them in debug with each one logging in as the test user, and they worked. We moved it up, we activated it, and everyone logging in had the same permissions, could not see it. Yeah. Try that one, Bill.
My favorite was when I learned that you can actually, in the screen flow itself, you can actually set some of those permissions as well.
Yeah.
We didn't know that somebody had changed it so that certain people couldn't view it. So again, when we were testing it, it worked just fine. But when we moved it up to production, all of a sudden, even when we were testing it, when we were doing our testing, it was like, why isn't it not working? Why is it not coming up? What's going on? We even put in a Salesforce ticket.
Yeah,
so
I moved mine up to QA. My QA tester caught it because I just did all the testing in dev, and I only did my testing in debug because I'm just like, it's in debug. I'm testing as the user, and then because we don't make changes in QA. So when she did it, I had to like push it all back up again after we finally figured out what was wrong. Because actually Ryan was the one who pointed it out that it's the problem in the debug.
Here's the other thing
yeah,
that I was going to make a comment on is that unfortunately, there's not a great way in flows to put comments more than 100 characters. Everything that I've seen is comments are only 100 characters. If you can put something in there to warn yourself, your future self, that this is this happens incorrectly, then it could save you some time. But again, like I said, it's hard to do because of the limitations we got there.
Right. But
yeah.
I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say the just I'd have to see the specifics to really comment on that use case that you brought up, Megan. But what I started thinking in my mind is I wonder like to get around this if I wouldn't say ignore user permissions, but if there was a world where like you had a screen flow that you wanted to act in 3 different ways depending on the user that's actually running it, like whatever access they have or permissions they have.
That's what record types are for.
Well, I was going to say like custom permissions and actually just checking to see if the user has the permission, and then go one route. And if they have a different permission, go a different route. And when I say custom permissions, I mean like actual custom permissions.
Yeah, I use those for dashboards a lot now. It's really helpful.
One of the other things that we learned the hard way is that if you have a screen flow and you have any element in there that a user does not have permission for, they can't use it.
What would be an example of an element that they wouldn't have access to? Like a object field?
Trying to remember exactly because this was like a year ago that we did it, but we created I think it might have been like record types or something, but we had a closed case flow. And what we tried to do was kind of minimize, because there's different things that need to be completed depending on what type of case it was. And so we had like that decision element, what type of case is this? And then that way it would go down the different paths. And then we had like one path where it was for something else. And there was something on that one that user over here that would never go down that path or even see that case. Even though it was not in the path anywhere that they would have gone down, they couldn't access the flow at all.
Wow.
But it was because, it was something about like a get records and however, even though it doesn't ever touch that element, because the fact that it was in there at all, it was just like, no, sorry, we're not going to do this. And I'm like, because we were trying to reduce our number of our flows.
I was about to say, is there a world where you like separate it out into another flow that you're calling from the one flow, but then you have how many number of flows just to get around this one little issue?
I mean, exactly. That's exactly what we're trying to do, was trying to reduce the number of automations that this org had. And that was what we thought we came up with. And we spent all this time building it. And then
no, can't do it.
Never mind.
I'm gonna make y'all real angry. I have 2 different flows running off of the same record trigger.
Nothing wrong with that.
It's ugly. It's really ugly. I had to completely rework some stuff this week. But I'll have to show you later, Sandy. You have to get on a call with me. I have to show you how I calculated business days going forwards and backwards and accounted for weekends and holidays.
Ooh.
Wow. I think that should be a dedicated session of office hours in a future week here.
No, because Ryan's going to be so mad at me because when he started helping me with it, we were trying to do it with formulas using case mods, but the problem is it always returns a positive integer. And to make it actually work, we needed some way more crazy logic with doing the inverse, not the opposite. It has to be the inverse. Whereas like if you're on a Saturday, to do the calculation, you need to add 2, but to the business days, you add 1, right? So 2 days would get you to Monday, but you only want 1 business day going forward. You also couldn't count the first day. So it's like, it's literally business days. But using the formulas that we were using, you could only ever get a positive. And once you hit certain days, it would just stop working. It would start calculating incorrectly based off the day. It was crazy. So I tore it all apart and I built the blockiest flow y'all have ever seen. But it works backwards and forwards.
Nice. Well, I would look forward to seeing that. Looking at the time though, we are over time.
Sorry.
Any last questions or comments before we part for the week?
One of our bosses showed up. Hey, Tyler.
All right. Well, I appreciate everybody's questions, all the feedback. If anybody has any additional questions, definitely jump into our Slack workspace and you can post them there and we'll try to help you out. And if you're not in Slack, you can always reach us on LinkedIn as well. But otherwise, hope everybody has a great weekend and we'll catch up next week. So thanks all.